Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another one-on-one podcast interview here on So Does It Matter, a project of the Flash Report. And this is where we go deep and get into the issues a lot more than just the headlines. And we talk about what's really going on. This is a special bonus episode this week. I say special trepidly because it's really what I would call it really sucks bonus episode is what I'll really call it. And that's not a pejorative about the man that we're going to interview. It's more a statement about the circumstances that have us doing this interview in the first place. So before we do anything, I just wanted to remind all of you that are watching that the best way that you can help me to spread the word and what we're doing is if you're watching this on Substack to restack it, to like it. If it's coming to you on YouTube, if you would like it, and if you want to get notified when these come out, or even if you don't, because it helps the algorithm, hit subscribe. And now that we've gotten that all out of the way, our special guest today is, I guess he's now Assembly Republican Leader Emeritus, which sounds really amazing. James Gallagher, who represents a big chunk of they call it the North State. If you're there, they might call it the state of Jefferson. It's unclear. It's kind of ubiquitous. It's a group of freedom. An area of California that is freedom loving in the northern part of the state, represented in part by James. James actually just finished being Assembly Republican leader. He's passed along the mantle, but he didn't realize it was for a purpose that had yet to be unveiled. Actually, I hate to say it that way, but sometimes things happen this way. So, James, you may or may not know it, depending on how many of these podcasts you've watched, but our tradition is that I go on to ChatGPT and I say, I have a conservative podcast and I'm going to introduce James Gallagher as my guest. Give me an introduction. I've not read it. You've not read it, but I'm about to read it. So good
Okay.
luck. Here we go. And so my apologies to my readers that I'm reading this. Joining me today is James Gallagher, a Republican member of the California State Assembly and the former Assembly Republican leader. He represents much of Northern California and is widely regarded as a constitutional conservative with a long record opposing tax hikes, government overreach, and Sacramento's one-party rule. Gallagher has also been one of the most outspoken and effective critics of Governor Gavin Newsom, regularly challenging the administration on affordability, public safety, energy policy, and the expansion of executive power. From budget fights to emergency powers, he has positioned himself as a leading voice, pushing back against what he argues is an increasingly unaccountable state government. This is pretty good, huh? And then it finishes up by saying just days, which I think would be more accurate to say just day ago, he announced his candidacy for Congress, making this a particularly timely conversation. We will talk about why he is running now, how his experience leading Republicans in Sacramento has shaped his governing philosophy, and what he believes needs to change in Washington. Anyways, that's pretty good.
That's really good, man.
This is why the internet is taking over. Then in a few minutes, it's going to tell me why I need to buy a new car and who I need to buy it from and why it's important to support seatbelt laws, right?
That's the scary part, right?
Right, that's the scary part. So, for everybody who's watching, you couldn't possibly not be aware of the backdrop that's preceding this interview. And I promise the Assemblyman's going to get a chance to talk soon. It's an interview of him, but we all have lamented the recent passing of our friend Congressman Doug LaMalfa. It happened suddenly, literally in the middle of the night. And at 65 years old, a friend was taken from us. And I'm going to let James talk about him in a minute, but I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that um, that Doug is not only a friend of the cause, which he was, and we'll talk about it. This is somebody who was a patriot down to the core and embraced conservative values down to the core. And I could say this on behalf of James before he even says it. We lost a dear friend. And so it's like you're trying to process a loss to the country, a loss to the community, while at the same time, a personal loss. And I'm going to tear up on this. I apologize ahead of time. James is more stoic than me. I'm saying that having watched you break down on an interview with Ashley Zavala on Channel 3 not that long ago. This is a tough one for all of us. So, James, I'm going to pass this over to you so that you can. I hate to do this to you. What happened to Doug? I mean, 1 minute he was with us and now he's gone. What happened?
Well, I mean, I don't know all the exact details, but it looks like it was a potentially aneurysm followed by a heart tear.
Right.
Yeah, man, I hope I can keep it together too.
It's
It's
tough.
been really tough because Doug was larger than life, man. He was a big some would maybe say a gentle giant because he had a big heart too. But he was a vociferous defender of our freedoms, of our American ideals, our way of life. And, I got the news early the next morning. I had gotten up, early and had a call from his chief of staff, Mark Span,
That's our friend Mark Spanigal, right?
who's been his right hand man. And, I've known Mark for many years. We worked for Doug LaMalfa together. That was really my first job in politics, was working for Doug. And so I got that call. I saw it was from Mark, and it was earlier than I've ever gotten a call from Mark. I remember thinking, like, man, this must be something important. And so I picked up, and he gave me the news, and I couldn't believe it. I think, like a lot of us, we were just in shock, because to me, Doug's just always been part of my political life, and to in an instant hear that he's gone, just I think hit us at our core. We've been through a lot of battles together, fighting for all those principles that we talked about: limited government, certainly no, limiting regulations, trying to eliminate regulations, wildfire. We experienced devastating wildfires in the North State that we helped walk our communities through in the aftermath. So yeah, I mean, it was just an immense loss that you
Sure.
instantly feel. And I still feel, because, I think a lot of us have said this here recently, you feel like you're going to walk out and you're going to see him, that
Right, of
there's
course.
no way that he's not here. And the other thing that's been reported so widely, and it's so true, is Doug was everywhere. I mean, he would go to every part of his district. He was always on the road. He loved serving, his district. And, it's a huge void not to have him at a community event or at a barbecue, or a.
Right. And then I would add this perspective as someone who I've had opportunities to spend a lot of time with Doug, but since I'm down in Orange County, I'm not with him any day, every day. And I don't know if this was your experience. I may not know anybody else who more intuitively just sensed when to call you, when to drop you a text message, when to comment on your Facebook page at a time that was either the perfect moment to use his dry wit and humor, right? Or it's like he knew I needed a boost right now. I needed a joke right now. I needed a serious, like, John, you've got this. And I have no idea how he did it. The guy's, either in Chico or he's in Reading or he's in Washington, D.C., and he still knew. He just knew. And it was a real connection.
That's totally true. I mean, we've talked about, I mean, Doug was a man of faith, and I really feel like God worked through him in amazing ways. And that was one of them. I think that was one of the gifts that, God gave him, was that he almost did know almost when to reach out to somebody, or give that word of encouragement, or a good joke, right? That people needed at the time, to
Yeah.
lighten the mood. He's very optimistic, and I think he was that for so many people. And you've seen that in a lot of the stories that have come out, here over the last week. I saw one where it's just like a member of Congress was like, I remember Doug, like, helped me find my way through the tunnels, in the Capitol when I first got there. I saw a story about him changing Duncan Hunter Sr.'s carburetor, like, and it's just stuff like that Doug would do. And, that I think just touch people, and that were not the
My
norm, not the
Yeah,
norm
not
at
the
all.
not I don't know why I feel compelled to share this story. You and I spoke yesterday, and I shared a couple stories, but right now I'm thinking about the fact that, about a year ago, my wife decided that she wanted to get a Tesla. So we got this Tesla Measure Y. I think that for 3 months straight, all he did was harass me about not having a real car and about how he called it the golf cart. So he'd always say, "How's the golf cart doing for you there, John? Have you got it plugged in? Is it charging so you can get to the ninth hole?" So it's just kind of for those of you who knew Doug, car enthusiasm was very high on Doug's list. As a matter of fact, I thought it was really appropriate. I was, scrolling around on X, which is where some of us live, and there's some association out of DC that represents the the people that make accessories for cars. Like every car accessory people, they have to hire someone in DC to defend their right to create accessories. And these people put out the most loving, wonderful statement about Doug and basically said, there was nobody in Congress who was more into accessorizing their American-built cars than Doug LaMalfa, and I just thought, "That's perfect." I mean, that statement, like, if Doug could see the statements that are coming out from the Speaker of the House, from the Governor of California, and all of these people, the one he would hold up and say, "This is the one." It'd be that one.
It's totally true. I think maybe that was SEMA,
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
and I can remember, actually, when I was working for him early on, I think he had gone down to have a big convention or something, and he loved that. I remember him. I didn't go with him, but he went down to it and was talking all about all the things that he had seen there. I can relate to the bad time. He would always give me a bad time. He loved classic cars.
He was a Chevy guy, right?
He was a Ford guy.
He was a Ford guy. He was the Ford guy. I guess I knew that. I have a Lincoln, and he would tell me, why would you get in the golf cart when you can get in the Lincoln? I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me,
Yeah, it had to be American made.
right?
You it had to be gas or diesel. He loved the sound, he's like, "There's nothing like the sound of an American made, muscle car." So with me, like, I drove for a long time a Ford Explorer. I've always liked Ford Explorers, but he called it the Exploder. He's like,
Right.
"How's the Exploder doing?" Like, "Make yourself a Mustang." And that's the kinda car that you gotta have. But hey, at least with your Tesla, you had an American-made car.
Well, that there you go. So, so I just kind of this is one of the hard parts about losing somebody that I mean, I'm flummoxed, and I usually don't have I'm not at a loss for words. You know, there's kind of a couple ways for someone to go, right? At sometimes you kind of say, "Well, God, when it's my time, just let an 18-wheeler run me over. I don't want a long, drawn out, painful process." And you think that, and then your friend in essence, has the medical equivalent of getting run over by an 18-wheeler. He's gone in a moment. And then I realized how selfish maybe my thought was because sure, Doug went straight to heaven, no pain, no long drawn out deterioration of body or mind. But man, what it leaves behind,
Yeah,
it's no opportunity to say goodbye. And
yeah.
no, I mean, other than as people of faith, we know that he's here with us right now. And so we get to say hello and goodbye, but I just trying to imagine the family. I mean, and then, like I said, those of you who were closest to him. So I really want to, I feel like I can express on behalf of everybody watching, frankly, how sorry that we feel for the greater family of Doug LaMalfa, of which you are most certainly a part. It's just an awful, horrible situation. And then to overlay on top of it, the fact that within hours, minutes of hearing that, I mean, when I woke, I heard the news pretty early in the morning, but I heard it from somebody who called to say, "Hey, I hear Doug LaMalfa died. Who's running for his seat?" The person who called me, that's what they said. "I heard Doug LaMalfa died, and who's running for his seat?" And I literally was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Doug LaMalfa's dead." And it was an immediate reminder that politics is mercilessly unforgiving, and it keeps moving on at a pace that none of us would like. So for those of you who don't know, and you'll know because it's on the title of the podcast interview, but James is running for Congress. But I really what I really want to talk about here is this process that you would have gone through about it. Because I joked on the phone with you yesterday. I know you well enough to know that it's the last thing you were thinking about. So, how does it go from this horrible situation to now you're being asked by his widow? I can't even say his widow. I mean, it's his wife. He's not dead long enough for me to call her a widow. And I mean, I don't laugh about it. I'm going to cry. So, talk to us about how James in mourning has to kind of become when I say reluctant, I don't for a minute think as we talk to you that you're going to be reluctant about picking up the torch for Doug, but you're going to be reluctant about the fact that Doug has not been put in the ground and we're talking about running for office. Just talk to us about that. I just talk to us.
No, it's something that really bothered me as well, John. It's like different folks, some media and otherwise, like immediately started talking about, oh, so what happens here, and how does his seat get filled, and all those things, and we're like, hey man, our friend just died,
Give it some time.
and can we take a breath here, and also obviously just loved seeing how many people like were talking about what a great man he was. That's the proper response, is to really start talking about this man and what he meant to people and how people were just in shock. But you immediately had that, and I had people calling or reaching out or texting and asking about, and I'm just like, man, I can't even think about that right now. You know, I need to mourn my friend, checking in with obviously his people and making sure people are okay, right? And so I couldn't even really think about it.
So how does it work? Do you get a do you get a call from the speaker that wakes you and shakes you awake? Does his wife talk to you? Is Dave Gilliard, who's that's a mutually shared political consult? Does he call you on the phone and say, "I hate to bug you, but we got to talk about it"? What's the call that causes you to kind of go, "All right, I don't want to do this. I don't have the bandwidth, not do this run for Congress. I don't have the bandwidth to pivot into this conversation," but what causes you to say, "Okay, I guess we got to talk about it"? Who gets to you, if that's the right way to say it?
Yeah, I think that, well, I know one person or anything. I think, that buzz continued to build, right?
Right,
And I think the thing that sort of forced it is, hey, there's going to start being this, people talking about it, people trying to say, hey, people should run, and there's going to be a special election. And I think maybe the
and
was like, I don't think that Doug would have wanted this, big gap of representation. And certainly in talking with Jill, so many other things that we talked about. One of them was that Doug worked so hard to represent this district and to make sure that the people were heard, and not wanting that to be in vain, all the work that he put in, and that the people needed a voice.
right,
And I did know in my heart that I think I can say pretty confidently it's something he would have wanted me to do.
right. I would agree with that, by the way.
Mhm.
He and I spoke about you a number of times, over the years. And he viewed you as a little brother.
Yeah,
Not only figuratively because he was such a big guy, but just as somebody, a mentor, mentee, you know. He didn't talk about you driving an exploder, but I didn't talk to him enough to really get into those weeds. And
he was.
I also think Doug would not have wanted to see a big fratricidal 8 people running for the seat. I guess this is as decent an opportunity as any. I'll let you regroup while I remind our readers that with the Prop 50 debacle that took place, Gavin Newsom and the Democrats who dominate the legislature made a very cynical political redrawing of the lines that was nowhere was it more egregious than in the North State. And so, as a practical matter, Doug, who was unflappable, was prepared to run for a seat that he and the president won by double digits. And then they redrew the district so that it would split up the conservative voters. And so, the area that Doug would be forced to run for reelection in now, because of so many voters coming in from the other side in Sonoma, down to, I think, yeah, into Sonoma County,
Right.
would now, if that election for president had been held in that district, would have had a double digit win for Vice President Harris. I mean, a huge shift. And so the speaker probably wouldn't appreciate my perspective here. But I'm not saying it's an impossible seat for a Republican to win, but whatever one step short of impossible is, that's kind of where it is. So at some level, and I get to say this, you don't have to say this is flying the banner to fill out the rest of Doug's term, and then having a very realistic expectation that at least the seat Doug lived in, it's probably going to be blue for a while, for a few years, until the redistricting commission can draw again. Now, I don't know if you live in that portion or if you live in yet another. Doug's old house seat got divided in a lot of ways,
Right.
but so everybody understands what we're talking about at this moment. It's to fill out the rest of the seat that was previously drawn and is a safe Republican seat. And then I guess you're more than welcome to share with us if you have any thoughts about whether you're also pursuing another seat, or we may be getting too far ahead of the story a bit. But so anyway, that's background for everybody while I let James regroup. I'll try not to do that to you again, where
You're
I
fine.
take you down the sad path. So bottom line is you say, okay, I'm going to do this. And here you are. So now you're running for Congress.
I think that's right, and that was also the other context is this is we had already gone through this really terrible blow of having our district ripped apart. And to your point, like, yeah, actually where I live was ripped apart from where Doug lives. Doug lives in Butte County and I'm in Sutter County, and those two places were put into two different districts.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but the far northernmost part of Doug's district is in yet a third district. So
Is yeah,
they chopped them
that
up into multiple pieces. As a matter of fact, if people watching, I've talked about this before, the northernmost part of imagine that if you stood at the corner of Nevada and I guess it would be Oregon and California, right at that point, you would be in the same district as you would be if you drove to the north end of the Golden Gate Bridge.
right.
So it's the most egregious example, but so anyways.
Yeah,
So
Modoc to Marin, it was the most egregious district, at the very north, and then bringing it down there. It's ridiculous. And so, and what I mean is
but
like
they've done the same
running,
thing for you, the district you live in. They've now taken your kind of rural to suburban conservative voters and I assume pushed a lot of it into the Sacramento metro area.
uh,
Is that where the Democrats come from in your district?
they pushed it into Yolo County,
Oh, yeah.
Davis,
Okay. Yeah. So west of Sacramento.
Napa, and a portion of Sonoma County. Yeah. So,
So would that be Garamendi's seat or that Thompson's seat?
Mike, yeah, and that
Right.
is now running in this new seat, that comes all the way over to Yuba and Sutter. And
Right.
so, yeah, I mean, what I mean is we were all reeling from, the aftermath of Prop 50. I will say that Doug, and as you just said, was like, I don't care. I'm going to run. Yeah, we know this is a tough seat. But Doug had been underestimated many times in politics, and he always proved everybody wrong. He went out there and he worked harder. Would again go to every part of the district. He was going to get in that Mustang or his Torino. He was going to win people over, and he did. I mean, that was one of the things that's so powerful about him, man. Is like he could relate to anybody, either through a car story or he loved Austin Powers. He would quote Austin Powers lines all the time.
The irony is that the Democrat who's running in that district now, who is now the former Senate president, Mike McGuire.
Mike,
I'm a baseball guy, so I keep
yeah,
getting Mark McGuire, right? So Mike McGuire, literally, and I don't know him well enough to speak to his character other than obviously judging him on what he did on Prop 50. I don't think very highly of him, but he couldn't be out of central casting is the opposite of Doug LaMalfa. This guy, I hate to use the word city slicker as somebody who comes from the LA area because I may be a city slicker. I don't know, but slick would be the operative word when I think about that guy. So, but
yeah. I mean, it was a complete, unjust move,
right,
and
of course.
don't have the evidence, but it looks like he had his fingerprints on how these districts got drawn.
Yeah, to put a finer point on it, they managed to draw somewhere between 3 and 5 new Democrat districts, and there just happens to be a brand new open seat that Kamala Harris won by double digits that is right where he lives, and even though he's in an area that had been represented by Thompson forever, somehow Thompson's just, a couple dozen miles down the road in another direction, and the boundary's right in between them,
Right. These
coincidentally.
were these were drawn for politicians.
Well, that was the whole argument. Prop 50 was instead of the people electing their politicians, this was an egregious opportunity for the politicians to pick their voters.
Yeah. And what a stark contrast, that you have somebody here who really did, do things for politics and do a politician move running against a guy who was for the people, who was absolute Doug LaMalfa was the epitome of representative, who took that so seriously that, yeah, I'm going to go everywhere to all parts of the districts. I want to hear from everybody, and then I'm going to go fight for you, and this is about the people. He would often say, and I remember it clearly, and all of the staff said this too, always be on the side of the people against the government, be on the side of the people. You're supposed to go there and speak for them, not for the, not,
He told me that once. Actually, he was in the state senate at the time, and I was talking to him, and he gave me a line that I've used actually in talking to other elected officials because I asked him once. I said, "So you must have all these special interests coming into your office asking you to do stuff." he kind of joked and he said at the beginning, but there's less of them because they don't tend to come see me or my friend Tom McClintock as much, right? Because they know how we're going to vote. But he said, and I said, so is it? Do you ever get taxpayer representatives coming into the room for those meetings? And he said, John, there's a taxpayer representative in every meeting I'm in. His name is Doug LaMalfa, and I never forgot that line. And I've used it with a number of new freshman legislators, reminding them that you're going to be in a place where everybody comes into your office that wants to take something from someone and give it to someone else. And there's always one lobbyist for the taxpayers in the room, and it's you. And I got that from Doug. So wisdom from a man who spent a lot of time under the hood of a car. So okay, so let's talk about so Congress, it looks like you might be well on your way to being a consensus candidate, which would be ideal, right? I know that I saw that your campaign this morning released some endorsements from former Senator Dolly and Senator Dolly. I saw Jim Nielsen. God bless Jim Nielsen. I haven't heard from him in a while, but he's managed to poke his head up long enough to say you're the guy. I really enjoy that, man. And then I know that I think I saw where the California Republican congressional delegation individually have all come on board. That will matter less to you. Now I guess you're just going to be in the exploder driving all around the district. Maybe you need to borrow one of Doug's cars. That would be appropriate. You could put all the miles on that.
I've thought about as a tribute to Doug. Yeah, again, it was a hard decision. I've been really heartened by how many people have said, yeah, we want to support you. We want to have that same kind of representation. There can never be another Doug.
It's
He
not.
was, and I stepped out into the gap, because I think it's the right thing to do, and my heart really is to, you know, continue his work, but also to just build unity in the North State at a time that we really needed after going all of this stuff and then losing, like, our patriarch, man, like a guy that we all look to, that is part of every we've done in the conservative movement in Northern California and fighting for rural issues. We've lost this guy. We've had this terrible just being a part of our communities, undermining representation, and that's kind of the pitch that I'm making to people is, hey man, let's come together, let's stand strong, let's fight against this the way that Doug would. Let's finish the work that he was so passionate about. And so it's like, you have these really mixed emotions of a heavy heart, that's still mourning, that is still missing your friend, and yet also just being also just totally in awe and inspired by everything that he meant, and wanting to make sure that that just comes through it all, right? And
Right.
like,
I would tell you this, James, by way of transition. I remember distinctly I was with Doug and actually our friend Joel Anderson, who was also in the state Senate at the time. And Doug decided to run for Congress. And he literally was on the phone with Wally Herger, who was the congressman who was retiring. And I remember him saying kind of words to the effect of, I don't know how to be the leader that you are. I don't know how to take on your legacy. Right. And so it's a reminder to me, remembering that call, that now you're in that. Now you obviously your conversation with Doug is more in prayer now. You're not actually on the phone, but if it makes you feel any better, Doug sat where you sat at one point, and while you thought he had it all handled, there was a time when he had it was like a leap of faith.
right.
Right. So it's kind of the cycle and of life. And then I guess we have to look at the situation that we're in, which is, I mean, with Doug's passing, with Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia resigning midway through her term. I think I read that the Republicans made it maybe down to 218 or 219 votes, and then you got Tom Massey from Kentucky, who he's actually a personal friend of mine. I like him a lot, but if I'm making vote counts for who's going to be voting with me, if I'm the Speaker of the House, you wouldn't put him in your column because he likes to vote no on everything, regardless of what it is. He reminds me of a Ron Paul. He and Ron Paul would vote. I remember it was Ron Paul voted against giving Mother Teresa the Congressional Medal of Honor because Congress didn't have the authority to use the gold value of a medal to give out to somebody. I mean, it was like that, right? So it's like you get kind of the extreme. And so it really, really, like, everyone's going to be cheering you to go back there as soon as possible. Has the governor called a date yet? for this election?
He hasn't, he has 14 days, to call that election, and, we anticipate it will get called, but kinda think he's probably gonna use those full 14 days. There's certainly been a lot of back and forth between him and the speaker.
Yeah, I
Uh,
what if I had to guess, my guess is that he will look on a calendar and say, "How late can I place this?" Because in his mind, it's gonna be, "How long can I keep Republicans from getting their reinforcement?" So, if he can, I don't know if he can, he'll delay this thing out to the June primary in our top 2 system just to pick the nominee the top 2, and then a special election even further out. You may be the shortest serving member of Congress, at least from this particular district. Right? So, we'll just
yeah, I mean, it'd be the case, and, but we're ready for whatever is to come, and, great we've rallied the team, I've spoke to Doug's staff, and so many who worked with him, and, we just what we wanna do is say, "Hey, no matter what, we're gonna go out there and do it. We're gonna try and make this as short of a time as possible that we have a
sure.
representative, so that we have someone speaking for us and all the things you talked about too. Like there was great work being done, in Washington D.C. that Doug believed in. That he loved the president.
Right.
He worked very closely with the president.
Well, then the president had some very nice things to say about Doug. I thought that was very touching, right?
Yeah,
The president has an ability to talk about a lot of things in different ways, and nobody uses sarcasm like he does. And so, because of that, when I heard the president in all of his sincerity talking about Doug, it really, really shone through that there was a connection there that was really important. So, if someone's watching this is your favorite part now. Somebody's watching this and they want to get involved. If they're local, if they're far away, how does somebody help you to do this? I assume there's a website.
there is a website, obviously in construction because we just announced this. Gallagher for Assembly has been the website. Obviously, that's going to morph into Gallagher for Congress. So, look for that, search it, and you can go to the website. That's certainly a place that you could help us.
I'm gonna help everybody out in real time because I'm gonna get a hold of your consultants. And by the time this video is running, the actual website that you need to go to is going to be right underneath the assemblyman's name, along with a phone call that he gets from his office saying it's James for the North State or whatever it is. And then you're on X, so you can find actually. Below this interview, if you're watching on Substack or in the show notes on YouTube, I'll put all these links so that you can get engaged and get involved.
I'm easy to. I'm very easy to find.
They're very easy to find. All right. Well, I want to err on the side of not making this so long that less people watch it. James, I'm going to end on this note for you, which is one of the first times that I went back to DC after Doug got elected. We were leaving his office, and I said, "Are we going to go through the cool tunnels?" And he said, "No, no, no, we're not doing the tunnels because I still like going up those big stairs in the front of the building." So we went outside and we went up the big stairs, and he looked at me and he says, "John, I get the shivers," and maybe he said goosebumps even, when I go up these stairs and I look up at the big Capitol dome. And he says, "The day I stop getting those is probably the day I ought to think about whether I'm in the right job." And so I would just tell you, James, if at the end of all of this you get elected to Congress, may your first trip into the Capitol not be through a tunnel, but up those big stairs, and that you get the same goosebumps that Doug got, because you would be a great representative for the North State. And I am so, so sorry for what you and the extended LaMalfa family have gone through. I feel like I'm a distant cousin compared to you guys, and I'm in mourning, but I know it's been really hard for you guys. So our prayers are with you, and we'll all be with you. I know Doug's memorial service is coming up soon, and our hearts will be with everybody. So thanks for giving us your time, and good luck on the campaign trail and trying to simultaneously mourn for Doug and carry on his legacy at the same time.
Thank you, John, and I absolutely will remember that. And I have heard those words from Doug myself. How much he took that as a charge and a stewardship, working under that dome.
So we had a little bit of a technical difficulty. We just kind of James cut out at the end, and so rather than chasing him down and trying to re-record the end, I think we were pretty well done anyway. So I would just maybe add some closing thoughts to this video. First and foremost, I said it earlier, but I think we all need to keep our thoughts and prayers with Doug LaMalfa's family and friends. I mean, I mean, he just passed away last week. So, I mean, this is all very fresh and very new. And then, whatever you can do to help James out, right, obviously would be very cool and useful. And then I will close by just reminding everybody here that you can help me out. And frankly, that you can help James out the more that we circulate this. So what does that look like? Below, if you're watching it on Substack, you got lots of options. You can pull it up on YouTube and drop that YouTube video on your social medias. You can take the link to where you're watching it now if it's on Substack, like it, share it, restack it. All those things help to move this interview around and help us to remember Doug, help us to assist James in trying to pick up the mantle. I'll just end by saying that Doug LaMalfa was a great guy, a good friend, a proud American, a loving husband, father, all of that. And it just sucks that he was taken from us so early. So with that, thanks for being a part of the So Does It Matter family. We're going to have more content coming to you every day. So we'll see you. Bye-bye.